Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
all right. It is 7 o'clock.
No.
Are we recording? All right. So it's 7 o'clock. This is, welcome everybody. This is the regular city council meeting for Minnetrista for January 23rd, 2023. So first, just a reminder, if you have cell phones with you, please put them on airplane mode or silent so they don't disrupt the meeting. And second, would you please join me in Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome everybody that's here this evening, as well as those that may be watching on YouTube later on this week. First order, I'm going to do a roll call or introductions here. I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor, and to my left are council members Kathleen Refkin, Peter Vickery, and McGregor is absent this evening, and then Claudia Lacey. On the end, we also have our city engineer, Allison Fauski with WSB, and then we have Gary Peters, who is our director of public works, and then Ali Palfus, who is our director of administration. And behind Ali, we have our city clerk, who is Don Motzko, also taking notes this evening. And then to my right, we have staff members, Jasper Krugel, who is our administrator, Brian Grimm, our finance director, David Abel, our community development director, and then Sam Ketchum, thank you. I got the first name. He is sitting in for Sarah Sensala this evening as our attorney, and then on their end we have our chief of police, Paul Falls. With that, are there any changes or additions to our agenda? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Vickery. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. This evening we have two special presentations, and I'm going to start with the recognition of our outgoing park and planning commissioners, and then we have some special people here with us this evening from the West Tonka Harrison's Bay Improvement Association. So first, I'd like to just say we haven't necessarily recognized our planning and parks commissioners in the past. One of the reasons is basically because they keep re-upping, and so they serve for many years. But this year we have a number of commissioners that are leaving their positions, and these are voluntary positions, and they put in a lot of time and effort into these commissions and do their service for the city. They make recommendations to the city council that are very important and very well appreciated. And so I'd like to read, so there's several commissioners. We have John Sturgis, who is a planning commissioner who is leaving, or has left, I should say. He served on the planning commission for 2 years. And then we have Justin Forbrook, who also was a planning commissioner and served for 6 years. Peter Vickery, now on the city council, served on the planning commission for 8 years. And then Patty Dykowski, she gets the award for this evening because she served on our park commission for 18 years. So these are, with John, Justin, Peter, and Patty, I would like to read a resolution and have the council consider passing this resolution for their many years of dedicated service to our community. This resolution, recognizing outgoing Planning Commission members John Sturgis, Justin Forbrook, and Peter Vickery, and outgoing Parks Commissioner member Patty Dykowski for their public service to the city of Minnetrista. Whereas members of the Planning Commission and Parks Commission are appointed by City Council, whereas members of the Planning Commission and Parks Commission are called upon to perform a duty of public service regularly, and whereas Planning Commission commissioners John Sturgis, Justin Forbrook, Peter Vickery have conducted themselves in a professional manner, provided great guidance to the City Council related to City of Minnetrista growth and development, and whereas Park Commissioner Patty Dykowski has provided insight to help make Minnetrista parks an amenity to be proud of, whereas the City of Minnetrista is proud and thankful for these volunteers and the service they have provided to the community. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Minnetrista that we recognize and thank Planning Commissioners John Sturgis, Justin Forbrook, Peter Vickery, and Parks Commission member Patty Dykowski for their service to the residents and the City of Minnetrista. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, due to various family issues and also Mr. Sturgis moving out of the state, the other commissioners were not able to be here this evening, but I would like to have a motion to approve this resolution by the council.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lacey. You're new, so yeah, I'll get this soon enough. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Then all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. So thank you very much again. Thank you for your service to the community. Next, we have the Harrisons Bay Association, or I should say Improvement Association, with the West Tonka Carp Project. You have about 10 minutes or so, and
Do you want the?
go ahead.
Want the advance? Yes, yeah. Point it towards here. Yep.
Great, thank you, council members and mayor for the time and the agenda tonight. Really appreciate that. Last time we were here, we got to see Councilmember Vickery and Lacey install with a huge crowd. Cheering. That's my mom. It was awesome. That was a great night. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll be able to share some things with you tonight that'll give you a little bit of a view into some things we've been pursuing with Harrisons Bay Association over the last year or so. I won't spend, there we go. I won't spend a tremendous amount of time on these first few slides. We shared a little bit about the association last time we were here. We're relatively young, but we've got a lot of energy, and we've covered a lot of ground already in our first year. We've got a board, we're a 501(c), and we've got a really active community, over 100 different homeowners around the lake, as well as more than 100 different renters at slips that use that body of water, and really are starting to create a multifaceted contingency of folks that really care about what happens on Harrisons Bay, but also the whole lake itself and the community. We've had a chance to really start building some great relationships with the association, with the LMCD, the MCWD, with the DNR, with a lot of associations around the lake, the Lake Minnetonka Association, the cities like Minnetrista and Mound that border our bay. And it's been a really great opportunity for us to start listening to the community, as well as observing what's going on with the bay and how we can maybe try to improve that. Many of the initiatives that we're trying to pursue at this point are relative to quality of life around the bay, how we use it, how we pursue it, how it is throughout all the seasons. We've really been able to drive some activities around limiting invasive weeds and been able to do some treatment and some studies on how to manage that. We're working on stormwater runoff. We've got some really great projects around rainwater and rain gardens, how to stop some of that runoff going in. The specific initiative I want to talk about tonight is carp management. Carp, right? We've got a major issue, and you'll see a few stats here that hopefully will give you a little bit of enlightenment around how big the issue is with carp in Harrisons Bay, but also the neighboring bays and the whole lake, the whole community across the 14,000 plus acres for Lake Minnetonka. Why do we care about carp? One of the biggest challenges that we have specifically at this end of the lake is something called reanimation or suspension of phosphorus deposits. So you all know if you drive 15 minutes or maybe even 5 minutes to the west of here, you're in farmland, right? We've got a lot of farmland, arable land out to the west of us. A lot of the runoff from fertilizers and other chemicals has found its way into those watersheds, found its way into the bays on this side of the lake. That phosphorus is not really healthy for that body of water. Over time, it settles to the bottom, becomes less of an impact. What carp do is reanimate that phosphorus. They get down, they drudge through the bottom. They're bottom feeders, they're large fish, and in large populations, they can completely resuspend that phosphorus, and that creates growth of something called blue-green algae. If you see that picture on the bottom right, if you've seen that before, you recognize it. We get those blooms throughout the year. That is phosphorus reanimating and creating food for those algae to grow. Not a great thing. It's actually dangerous, can cause eye infections, can choke off natural habitat. Natural plants are something as well that are impacted by carp. Because they churn up that water and the visibility gets to be very low, it's hard for native plants to find root and actually grow in that water. When the native plants die, then the invasive species come in and flourish. So there's kind of a cycle of not great outcomes when you've got carp in those waters, as well as just the quality of using those waterways. You've got thick green water instead of clear crystal water when you want to get out there and use it. Perfect carp habitat. You're looking at Harrison's Bay, West Arm, and Jennings here in Forest as well. Very shallow bodies of water. That churning that happens is even more accelerated or amplified when you got shallow water. And it's also a really great breeding ground for carp. Carp look for those warm water areas. They look for moving water, like Painter's Creek, 6 Mile Creek over in Halsteads, areas where they can create protected nurseries for their young to grow. And we've got a lot of those on this side of the lake. And there's great evidence that we know there's at least 3 inland waterways from creeks or inbound waterways that are nurseries for carp growth. We know they go there in the spring as well. So how big of a problem is it? What kind of a challenge are we talking about? We actually funded some activities this last year to start measuring. That's the first thing you really need to get to. If you're going to beat the problem, find out how big the problem is. We engaged some folks from Carp Solutions from the University of Minnesota. Shemek Baird is an associate professor there that is heading up studies around carp as an invasive species and impact on Minnesota waterways. They went out and did electrofishing, which sounds a little bit aggressive, right? It's a small boat that has electrodes in the front that stuns the fish temporarily. They're able to bring someone to the boat, measure, insert what are called pit tags, which can actually track the movement of those fish. We had 167 carp that were tagged in our 3 bays across about a 2 to 3 day period. And that really was the start of kind of understanding what's out there. The number I'll call your attention to at the bottom is really the one that's most shocking. This is biomass kilograms per hectare or metric acre. And if we go to the next page, you'll kind of see this translated into pounds, which might be a little more familiar for us. Using the University of Minnesota's extrapolation logic, we think that there could be more than 86,000 pounds of carp in Harrison's, 431,000 in West Arm, and 189,000 in Jennings. The healthy volume of carp in any given body of water, based on the University of Minnesota, is about 90 to 100 pounds. So we have got a problem in those bays. Massive population of carp that are out there churning up. This is actually survey data that was as fresh as this fall. So October, we know that it's fresh, it's recent. And it's something that gives us some concern, obviously, when we go at this and start thinking about how do we remove almost 700,000 pounds of carp safely, not impact the waterway, not impact local species, make sure we're doing it in a way that's environmentally sound. It seems a little bit overwhelming. One of the things that we had in one of our meetings was that moment of despair, right? We saw some of those numbers and said, oh my gosh, we're a little association, communities that are trying to make a difference. What could you actually do? How could it really look if you did this well? So we went back again and worked with the University of Minnesota. John Downing went out and did an actual experiment on a lake in northern Minnesota that was connected through a couple waterways, but it had a road down the middle. It was very difficult for carp to move from one side to the other. In fact, they blocked off. And they did treatment on the right side of that lake, carp management techniques, fishing, removal, brought in bluegills to eat the carp eggs, which is their favorite snack. And the left side, they did nothing, so that was your control. And you can see, this is 2 days after the aggressive removal, the sediment started to fall. And look at that color difference. That is the kind of lake we want to have on the right. That's the pursuit of a healthy body of water. The natural vegetation started coming back. We've got a whole library of materials that kind of show the before and after that make you a little bit excited.
How much did that cost?
That study?
Yep.
Oh, the actual.
No, the actual 2 days.
I don't have a number for you on cost. We can certainly follow up on that. It wasn't some of the treatment methodologies that we're talking about are not millions and millions of dollars, right? These are techniques to try to get to those nurseries, find out where you can stem the growth of new carp, and then remove them through commercial fishing, netting. There's a whole host of different ways you can do that. If you want to get a little bit more information on that, we can follow up on cost as well. So that's exciting to see that there is a possibility to do something. One of the other things that we saw was this direct relationship between natural growth of weeds that are natural species for that body of water, and the removal of carp. It was almost a perfect proportional curve. You remove the carp, the natural weed species come back, you get more oxygen in the water, the natural fish come back, the turtles and frogs and other wildlife that are using that wildfowl as well are using that because now there's natural wildlife growth or natural weed growth there. So that's exciting as well, and they saw a really connected proportion on those strategies. So what are we trying to do? What we really want to do is continue to investigate how big this problem is. So we did the carp assessment in the fall. We did those pit tags. Those pit tags are kind of like when you go to a shopping mall and you've got a piece of clothing that you really like and it's got that tag on it. If it passes through the gate, the alarm goes off, right? They're pretty simple that way. They can only tell that something passed through the gate. They don't know which way it went. They don't know what it did afterward. So we're actually extending our strategy with Carp Solutions and the University of Minnesota to bring in some radio tags. And radio tags will actually let us track movement of adult carp and young carp in the bays and kind of see where they're going. Are they coming from the far east side of the lake? Are they sticking around painters? How do they move throughout the year? So we're working to get some more direct tracking studies on how they move. To do some of that, to your question on cost, City Council raising, we are looking to raise funds. So we funded most of this activity up this front from our own association and folks that care about the Bay. We got some grants from the LMCD as well to offset some of that cost. But right now we're actively pursuing a grant from Bowser, which is the Board of Water and Soil Resources, University of Minnesota. They made available about $500,000 in funds that would match up with what we're trying to do and would also help address a problem on one of the most important waterways in the Twin Cities, if not in the state of Minnesota. So we're pursuing grant funds from that pool as well. And then we're developing partnerships. That's why we're here tonight, to think about other groups like the city of Minnetrista that care about this waterway, that might be interested in knowing more about what's happening, maybe trying to connect us up with folks that could care, bring community awareness to bear. We really think this has to be a coalition across the lake. We're starting with our side of the lake, the bays that we've really focused on, but this is a lake-wide problem. This is a lake-wide problem that goes all the way from here over to Excelsior, to Grays, to Browns. If you've ever been to Maynard's and looked underneath the docks, you see giant carp swimming around, right? It's a problem that we can all address. We've got a lot of activity around migration sites, nursery sites, identifying those next spring. We've got some actual tests of netting that we're going to do next spring as well. Trap net surveys. We're going to do an age analysis of carp to see if these are old carp or young carp, and how do we manage that differently depending on the results that come out of that. So I won't really drain the full slide here, but we've got a lot of stuff that we're really trying to plan out for the next 2 to 3 years. So our big ask is really along that coalition side. We're not here to ask for money from the city council. We're here to ask for partnership. If we can come back and spend time updating you on how things are going, if you see opportunities for us to engage with your community, with the council, to partner up with activities that you start building around invasive species or anything else that really impacts how we use the lake, and maybe we can come together and really try to do more than we could do separately. That's what I had to present for tonight. Hopefully it was 10 or 11 minutes. Maybe a little longer.
Close enough. Thank you.
Glad to take any questions or discussion from the council on what we presented tonight, and certainly would love to follow up with
Right.
any answer tonight.
So first of all, thank you for coming and sharing this information with us. I will applaud you and commend you for your work and efforts. It's a huge undertaking, as you know, not only from a work standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. I know you've been working with MCWD or the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, and I know that they've been partnering with you on different efforts. Good luck on your Clean Water Legacy Funding grant. That $500 million, of course, is statewide, as you know, and it can go to nonprofits as well as to Native American groups as well. So you're going to be in a tight race for that money. I think it's between $225,000 and $250,000 that they can award. So, but here's the thing that we could do if the council is willing. We could maybe provide a letter of support That might, I don't know if that would be of help, but
That'd be
that's
fantastic,
something we
yeah.
could do. Obviously, we have 2 other bays that are shallow bays, and as you know, that's more problematic than deep bays. But Harrison Bay and Jennings Bay and Halstead are all shallow bays. So not only are they plagued with the carp, but when you have a shallow bay, of course, you know that there's other issues with water meeting the TMDLs. So a couple questions. Do you know what the TMDL is, has been done? And do they have a TMDL work for Harrison and Jennings? Because obviously you have to address Jennings before you can address Harrison's.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I'm not aware of the TMDL work that may or may not have been done for Harrisonville. Are you? Not sure.
okay.
Not
It
sure.
says so TMDL is a total maximum daily load, a study that they normally do to determine whether or not a water body is impaired. And when you don't meet those standards, like you were talking about, then you're considered impaired. So the other thing is, you should check with, I think MCWD has a 10-year CIP or capital improvement plan. They're probably about halfway through it by now, and they can't pivot immediately. They have to finish projects that they've already started, but again, maybe with our support, they might consider changing their CIP and maybe putting you on the docket within the next couple of years versus waiting the 5 years or more. The other thing, though, that they are going to have to do, as I mentioned, they do have to address the Painter Creek and the Jennings Bay first, because everything upstream goes downstream, and it wouldn't make sense to fix everything in Harrison's Bay and not fix it in Jennings Bay.
Right.
You do understand that, right?
Yeah,
So,
and we've actually engaged the communities in
Yes.
Jennings and West Arm as well.
Yeah.
Some of those folks are on our CARP committee.
okay,
so we're
that's
kind
what
of
I was,
broadening our
yeah.
focus. You know, our purview is Harrison's,
Right.
but we think it does take a coalition.
it's
we're
going to
gonna-
take that, because I don't think that they're going to address Harrison's unless they first address Jennings.
Yeah.
And it can all happen at the same time, but the more people you have on board, the better it is. And then the other thing is, do you know what the littoral area is of Harrison's Bay? It's quite a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
I mean,
it's
it's-
relatively large
Yeah.
On the west side.
Yeah, because, and that's your problem. But the other thing you might want to focus on too, if you want total, because after the carp, there's other internal loading issues that you have to deal with, and then you also have to deal with the external loading. So that's another thing you can be working on in the interim, is the external loading. You mentioned a couple of things already, which is great. And if you continue those efforts, and again, I would work in conjunction with MCWD to see what they might recommend for that external loading, besides what's coming down Painter Creek. That's the biggest thing. But if you can figure out how many pounds of phosphorus you can reduce by other methods, like you've already mentioned, would be a great help too. So, but again, if the council's willing to do a letter of support, we can do that. We can use our influence as best we can.
That would be
So-
fantastic.
All right.
We're willing to accept any help you can provide.
Yes, all
So
right.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much for all those recommendations, and thanks again
Okay.
for the time on the agenda. We'll be in
Thank you.
touch. We'll keep you informed as things progress.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. All right, we don't have any persons to be heard this evening, so now we'll move on to our consent agenda items. And we have on any items you wish to remove? Okay, hearing none then. They consist of items A through H. A is approve our work session meeting minutes from January 9th, 2023. B is approve our city council regular meeting minutes from January 9th, 2023. C is a resolution to approve claims. D is a resolution to approve the reimbursement resolution for our 2023 equipment certificates. E is a resolution to approve closing for Fund 515 and 409, which is the 409 is the Mount Fire Debt and American Rescue Act Fund is 514, or vice versa. And then F is accept improvements and authorize the final payment for our 2022 street improvement projects. It was $80,000 under estimate. Yay, very good. Good to hear. And then G is approve and authorize execution of our second amendment to the purchase agreement with Arnie and Jennifer Abens. And then H is a recognition resolution for outgoing Planning and Parks Commissioner members, which we've already done. So it's actually only A through G. With that, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G?
Motion.
Thank you. Ms. Refkin, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. So this should be a fairly short meeting. I think Ms. Refkin said 7:30. We'll see if we hit that mark. We'll move on. We don't have any public hearings or business items, so we'll move on to staff reports.
Yeah, I'm Mayor Whalen, members of City Council. The only thing I have is we had a good discussion today at the work session. Something that came up that we'll look at the next work session is just city events and kind of finalizing some of those dates for things like the bus tour and Trista Day. There was a couple other ones.
State of the city.
State of the city.
Yeah,
Any additional things. So we'll be adding those to the city events.
great.
So that's
Thank
all I
you.
have.
No other, any council reports?
Mound Fire Commission is Thursday. Jasper and I will be attending.
Okay. Peter, anything?
I don't have anything to report.
Okay. And Ms. Lacy?
No, nothing
Okay.
to report.
I have just a real quick, hopefully I'll make the 7:30. So I attended the Northwest League, and we didn't have a speaker, but it was very interesting and very informative, just talking to the other mayors and what's going on in their cities. And fortunately, we don't have some of the issues that they have, which is good. And the other thing is, even though we may have some of the same issues, it's good to hear how they're handling those as well. So it was a good, really nice meeting. Now we have one coming up in February, and we will be meeting our brand new Hennepin County chief, newly elected. And then I did attend the all-staff police meeting. Thank you very much for allowing me to crash your meeting for the first 15 minutes. So that was nice. And just kind of putting especially the new people, the new officers, it's really good to see their faces again and put their names to their faces, although I didn't do very well with that. But I think they'll forgive me. With that, and then Kathleen and I also met with the Personnel Committee right before this meeting, and we're hoping to hire our next police officer. So looking forward to having a full force again. So with that, that's all I have. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Vickery. Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. 7:27. Kathleen gets the prize.